My name is Emily, and for years, I thought I had built the perfect life. I married Daniel when we were both in our 20s. He was charming, funny, and promised me the world. But somewhere along the line, the man I fell in love with vanished, leaving behind a shell of who he once was. Daniel lost his job 5 years ago, and instead of fighting to rebuild his career, he slipped into a routine of doing nothing. He'd spend entire days lounging on the couch, binging shows, or scrolling endlessly on his phone. Meanwhile, I was working double shifts as a nurse, paying the bills, cooking the meals, and keeping our home from falling apart. The worst part? He didn't even seem to notice how exhausted I was. Birthdays passed without a word, anniversaries without a card, and Christmas mornings without so much as a hug. I was married, but I felt utterly alone. I should have left him, I knew it deep down. But I loved our house, the life I had worked so hard for, and a part of me still clung to the hope that Daniel might change. That hope, however, was hanging by a thread. The turning point came during one of my Friday coffee meetups with my best friend, Rachel. She had known me since high school and was one of the few people I could talk to honestly about my crumbling marriage. "Emily," Rachel said, stirring her latte, "you're practically a single mom, except the only person you're taking care of is a grown man." I laughed bitterly. "Don't I know it?" Rachel leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "So make him change. If he won't be your husband, then maybe he can be something else." The way she said it made me freeze. "What do you mean?" Rachel smirked. "Let's just say, Daniel doesn't need to stay stuck as Daniel forever. You'd be surprised how people adapt when you give them a little push." It sounded ridiculous. Impossible. But her words lingered in my mind for days. What if there was a way to reshape Daniel, not into the husband I wanted, but into someone entirely different? At first, it started small. I asked Daniel to help with basic chores, folding laundry, wiping down the counters. To my surprise, he didn't complain much. Maybe he was just bored, but soon he was cooking simple meals and even vacuuming the living room without me asking. One evening, after finishing the dishes, he said something that caught me off guard. "You know, your lotion smells really nice. Like, calming. Can I try it?" I blinked at him. Daniel, my husband who once mocked me for spending too much on girly stuff, was asking to use my floral-scented lotion. I handed him the bottle, and as he rubbed it into his arms, I noticed how strangely content he looked. From then on, little changes began to appear. He started showering earlier in the day, choosing softer-smelling soaps, even humming while folding clothes. One afternoon, I caught him holding up one of my blouses to his chest in front of the mirror. When our eyes met, he dropped it instantly, face red. "I was just curious," he muttered. But curiosity has a way of growing. One night, as I came home late from work, I found Daniel sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at himself in the mirror. His arms were freshly shaved, his nails neatly trimmed. He looked different. "Emily," he said slowly, "do you ever wonder what it would be like if I were not your husband, but something else? Like, your companion, your helper, maybe even—" He hesitated, searching for the words. "Someone softer?" My heart pounded. Rachel's words echoed in my head. "Maybe he doesn't need to stay Daniel forever." I sat beside him, placing my hand on his. "If that's what you want, Daniel, maybe we can explore it together." He didn't answer right away, but the faint smile that spread across his face told me everything I needed to know. And that was the moment our story truly began. The morning after Daniel's strange confession, I half expected him to brush it off, to laugh and pretend it was just a passing thought. But instead, something had shifted. He woke up earlier than usual, made us both breakfast, and even set the table with fresh flowers he must have picked from the garden. The Daniel I knew never did things like this. I sipped my coffee, watching him move around the kitchen with an energy I hadn't seen in years. "You're in a good mood," I said. He smiled faintly. "I just want to feel useful again. Maybe even different." That Friday, I couldn't wait to tell Rachel. We met at our usual cafe, and I explained everything, how Daniel seemed open, curious, and softer. Rachel's eyes lit up. "Emily, this is huge. He's already halfway there." Don't scare him with big changes yet, just nudge him along. Nudge him how? I asked. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Encourage the small things. Compliment him when he notices beauty. Invite him to try new clothes, new habits. Let him believe it's his idea. I left the cafe with my heart racing. It felt like I was standing at the edge of something I couldn't quite define, something both thrilling and dangerous. That evening, Daniel was folding laundry when his hands lingered on one of my satin nightgowns. I caught the look in his eyes, half guilty, half mesmerized. I didn't say a word. Instead, I gently took the gown from his hands and draped it over his shoulder. You'd be surprised how good this would look on you, I teased. He froze. You really think so? Try it, I urged softly. For a long moment, he hesitated. Then, almost as if surrendering to a hidden desire, he slipped it on. The fabric flowed against his frame, and he stood in front of the mirror, stunned into silence. I stepped behind him, resting my chin on his shoulder. See? You don't have to be stuck in the old Daniel anymore. You can be whoever you want. His reflection smiled timidly. And I realized I wasn't just watching my husband anymore. I was watching someone new. What began as a one-time experiment quickly turned into something more. Over the next week, Daniel started borrowing my softer shirts around the house. At first, he claimed it was just for comfort, but I noticed how carefully he chose the ones with lace trims or pastel colors. One afternoon, as I came home from work, I found him standing in front of the hallway mirror, slowly applying a touch of my lip balm. His cheeks flushed when he saw me, but I just smiled. You look softer, I said. His shoulders relaxed. I like it. Is that strange? Not at all. That night, while brushing my hair, I caught him staring again. So I handed him the brush. Here. Try. He brushed my hair awkwardly at first, but soon his hands grew steady. It's calming, he admitted. And then, almost whispering, he asked, would you ever brush mine? It was Rachel who pushed the idea further. When I told her how Daniel was experimenting, she said, names matter, Emily. They shape identity. If he's stepping into something new, maybe he needs a name that reflects it. The thought stuck with me all week. One night, after dinner, I gently asked, Daniel, when you see yourself in the mirror now, do you still see him? He shook his head slowly. No, not really. I took his hand. Then who do you see? His lips trembled, as if the answer had been on the tip of his tongue for days. Finally, he whispered, Danny. I smiled. Danny suits you. For the first time in years, his eyes filled with a light I thought I'd never see again. The weekend came quicker than expected, and with it, an invitation from Rachel. Girls' day out, my treat. Bring Danny. At first, Danny looked horrified. Go out? Like this. She gestured at the simple cardigan and leggings she had borrowed from my closet. I squeezed her hand. You don't have to be anyone but yourself. Rachel and I will be right there. Danny's lips pressed together nervously, but she didn't say no. And that was enough. The three of us took the train into the city. Danny sat stiffly between Rachel and me, clutching her tote bag as though it were a lifeline. I could feel the tension rolling off her, but Rachel leaned over and whispered, You look fine. No one cares as much as you think they do. Still, Danny's eyes darted everywhere, checking if anyone was staring. A few people glanced her way, but most didn't give a second thought. By the time we stepped into the bright chaos of the shopping district, Danny's shoulders had loosened just a little. Our first stop was a small boutique filled with racks of dresses, skirts, and delicate blouses. Rachel, ever the instigator, grabbed a floral sundress off the rack and tossed it into Danny's arms. Go on. Humor me. Danny's face turned red. Rachel, I can't. Yes, you can, I said softly. I'll come with you. Reluctantly, Danny followed me into the fitting room. She slipped into the dress, fumbling with the zipper, and then turned toward the mirror. The silence stretched. For the first time, Danny wasn't just trying on clothes, she was seeing herself in them. The curve of the fabric, the way the hem swayed just above her knees, the soft neckline that framed her shoulders, it all seemed to click. Emily, she whispered, her voice trembling. I look, right? I felt a lump in my throat. Yes, Danny. You do. When we stepped out of the fitting room, Danny was still flushed with nerves. She nearly bolted back inside until a young sales clerk glanced up and smiled warmly. That color really suits you, the clerk said casually, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Danny froze, stunned. You think so? Absolutely, the clerk replied, already moving to help another customer. That tiny, fleeting moment lit something in Danny's eyes I hadn't seen in years. Validation. We ended the day at a quiet cafe tucked away from the main street. Danny fidgeted with her napkin, still riding the high of the shopping trip, but unsure what to do with the emotions bubbling inside her. Rachel, never one to hold back, raised her glass. To Danny, the bravest of us today. Danny ducked her head, but her smile betrayed her pride. And then, as if fate itself wanted to test her newfound confidence, the waiter leaned down and asked, "Anything else for you ladies?" For a split second, I thought Danny might correct him, tell him he was wrong. But instead, she looked up, her cheeks pink, and whispered, "No, thank you." The waiter walked away without a second glance. Danny turned to me, eyes wide. He called me. I took her hand. A lady. And you didn't correct him. She exhaled shakily. Because it felt good. That night, back at home, Danny laid out her new clothes carefully, almost reverently. As she touched the fabric, she whispered something I'll never forget. "Emily, I don't think I can go back. Not after today." And I knew deep down she was right. This wasn't just a phase. It was the beginning of a new life. The high from Danny's first shopping trip carried into the next few days. She moved differently now, lighter, more deliberate. Every morning, she carefully picked an outfit from her growing wardrobe, even if it was just a soft blouse and leggings to wear around the house. For the first time in years, our home felt alive again. But life has a way of testing new beginnings. And Danny's test came sooner than either of us expected. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. Danny was in the kitchen, humming to herself while baking muffins. She wore a pale blue dress that floated around her knees, her hair clipped back with one of my barrettes. Then came a sharp knock on the door. I went to answer it, only to find Mark, our next-door neighbor, standing there with his arms crossed. He had the kind of sharp eyes that never missed anything, especially gossip-worthy details. "Afternoon, Emily," he said. His gaze flicked past me into the house. "Just wanted to ask about the fence repairs, but who's that?" I froze. Behind me, Danny peeked into the hallway, holding the tray of muffins. Her face went pale the moment she realized Mark was staring at her. "Oh," I said quickly, forcing a smile. "This is Danny. She's family." Mark raised an eyebrow. "Family, huh? Funny, I could have sworn I saw your husband mowing the lawn a few months ago." The tension in the air was thick. Danny's hands shook as she set the tray down on the counter.